By the most cited estimate, the world spent somewhere north of $300 billion getting ready for the 1st of January 2000. And then, that date arrived, and essentially nothing happened. There are two stories people tell about that. The first is that Y2K was a hoax, a panic sold by consultants. The second is that it was real and it was fixed, quietly, by an enormous amount of unglamorous work. Both of those are told with complete confidence. And there is a piece of evidence that neither side likes, which is the most interesting thing in this whole story. Start with why the bug existed at all, because it was not stupidity, it was arithmetic. In the 1960s, computer memory cost about $1 per bit. Commercial machines shipped with as little as 2 kilobytes of it. If you are storing a date, and you write the year as 4 digits instead of 2, you have just doubled the cost of that field on every record in every file forever. So programmers wrote the year as 2 digits. 68, 73, 99. Alan Greenspan, who later ran the American Central Bank, wrote those programs himself in that era. He said conserving that space was very important at the time. This was not a mistake. It was a correct decision made under a constraint that later went away, and the code outlived the constraint by 30 years. Here is the part that makes it a problem rather than a curiosity. If the year is 2 digits, then the machine does not store 1999, it stores 99. And when the clock rolls over, it stores 00. To a program doing arithmetic on that, 00 is not the year 2000, it is 1900. So anything that subtracted one date from another could produce an answer that was off by a century. How old is this patient? How long until this loan matures? How many days since this part was inspected? Is this transaction from the future? That is the whole bug. It is not exotic. And that is exactly why it was everywhere. Now, what actually happened on the day? Not nothing. Small things. All over the world. And they are worth listing, because they are the ground truth in an argument that is usually conducted with hand-waving. In Australia, bus ticket machines failed in 2 states. In Japan, ticket machines at train stations went down, some telecoms produced wrong dates, and at the Shika nuclear power plant, a piece of radiation monitoring equipment failed. In South Korea, heating systems went out for 19 hours, and some hospital equipment miscalculated patient ages. In Greece, around 30,000 cash registers printed dates in 1900. In France, the National Weather Service published a date reading 01/01/19100. And in the United States, the Naval Observatory's own website displayed the year 19,100, which is a very funny place for that to happen. Every one of those is real, and every one of those is trivial. There is one more thing about the fix itself that almost never gets mentioned, and it changes how you should read all of this. A lot of the repair work did not remove the bug, it postponed it. The expensive permanent fix is date expansion. Go into every record and every file, widen the year field to 4 digits, and rebuild everything that touches it. That is correct, and it is enormous. So a great deal of the industry used a cheaper technique instead, called windowing. You leave the 2-digit year exactly where it is, and you add a small patch that says, when you have to compare or calculate, treat anything below a chosen cutoff as 20-something, and anything above it as 19-something. It was simpler to test and simpler to install, and therefore much less costly. It also works. For a while, windowing fixes were generally designed to hold for many decades, not forever, because the cutoff eventually comes round again, which means an unknown quantity of the code that was declared fixed in 1999 was not fixed. It was handed to somebody else, with a timer on it. Some of those timers have already gone off. In January of 2020, systems that had been patched with a cutoff of 20 began failing right on schedule. Parking meters in New York stopped accepting credit cards. Utility bills went out dated 1920. A wrestling video game crashed at midnight 20 years late, and the next deadline is already on the calendar. In January of 2038, the 32-bit counters that many computer systems still use to keep time run out of room, and the same arithmetic breaks again. That is worth sitting with, given that the popular verdict on Y2K is that it was solved. So which story is right? The case that the spending was necessary is straightforward. The absence of failure is the proof of the work. You cannot see the disasters that did not happen. Millions of lines of code were audited and repaired, and the reason your bank statement was correct on the 2nd of January is that somebody went and looked. There is even a bonus argument. The contingency and backup systems built for Y2K were still in place 20 months later, and they helped firms in Lower Manhattan recover after the 11th of September. That is a serious case. Hold on to it. Now, the evidence that side does not enjoy. Some countries barely prepared at all. Italy, South Korea, and Russia spent comparatively very little, and they had the same negligible problems as the countries that spent enormous sums. That is not a rumor. It is the observation that sits in the middle of every honest account of Y2K, and it is very hard to square with the heroic version. If $134 billion of American remediation was the difference between order and collapse, then the countries that skipped it should look different afterwards. They do not. The same firm whose estimate gives us the 300 billion figure also suggested the United States may have wasted around 40 billion of it. So here is the honest answer, which is less satisfying than either headline and more useful than both. Y2K was a real bug. That part is not in question, and the failures on the day prove the mechanism worked exactly as predicted, just at a scale nobody could feel. Critical systems were probably worth fixing. Banking, aviation, power, anything doing data arithmetic on money or safety. And a very large amount of the money went to auditing systems that would have coughed once and carried on. Consultancies had every incentive to define the problem broadly. Nobody in 1999 got promoted for saying this probably will not matter. Both things are true at once. It was necessary, and it was oversold, and those are not contradictory because they were not the same spending. The reason this matters now has nothing to do with old mainframes. Y2K is the clearest example we have of a problem that punishes you for solving it. Fix it well, and the evidence of the danger disappears, and you look like a fool who panicked. Fail to fix it, and everyone can see exactly what you should have done. Every large invisible risk has that shape. Anything where success looks identical to overreaction. The engineers who did the work in 1998 and 1999 got no credit at all because the reward for their success was a world in which nothing was visibly wrong. 20 years later, they are the punchline in a joke about panic. Whatever the honest split turns out to be between necessary and wasted, that part is not fair. The next time you hear that something was obviously overblown because nothing bad happened, it is worth asking one question first. Did nothing happen, or did somebody